Cool. So welcome everyone in today's workshop. Let me just first share the screen so we know what we're talking about. Can you see my screen? If anyone could say yes or no. Yeah, cool. Let me just make it bigger. Yeah. Can you see the big screen now? Yeah, amazing. Right. So a very important moment in the year, in my opinion, October, because it leads us to 3 months left in 2025. And throughout my work with so many clients, I've seen a major drop in mojo, in energy and motivation, in goal setting. And it is understandable, but it can be prevented. So I first want to recalibrate a little bit, talk about mindset and do a so-called mindset check, and then a goal check, and then break it down into specific measures that you can take to get the mojo back if you're guilty of a dropping mojo at the moment. But it's always good to do those every now and then. I like doing them and self-reflecting on the previous month every month. Business, fitness, relationships. So it's a good habit. So a few words, housekeeping, stay muted for now. Cameras on if you are brave, and that is always nicer. Thanks, Pat and Steph. And if you have a question, type in. Can we just make sure I can see the chat? Can anyone just type in something in the chat so that I see if I can see it here on the screen? I can. Amazing. Thanks. Hi. Okay. And you might want to use a notepad and a pen because it will be a workshop. So I want you to be active. You're going to just benefit more if you participate. So you can take screenshots as well, but it's always pen and paper, old school. So first, the mindset check. I cannot talk about goals and getting the mojo back without doing the mindset check. Firstly, it's 89 days left of 2025. And that is a good time to pause, reflect, recalibrate. Again, Christmas coming, festive season are always messy. And also the darker days, longer days and darker days and more cold days make us feel funny and less motivated. And this is normal. First and foremost, it is normal. I feel it. It is undeniably a human nature to be wanting to feel cozy and treat ourselves to cozy food, and kind of we're not finding it joyful anymore to go outside that much, at least. So without kind of like, I want you to recognize yourselves somewhere in the victim or the winner's mentality. And before I dive in what I mean by this is also based on psychology. All that I'm sharing with you is kind of a recap of what I learn, I read, and it's not my ideas. It's also taken from my experience, how I feel as I see the tendency of myself and my own brain sometimes going into the victim's mentality. And victim obviously finds excuses. Everything is hard, you're tired, you're sleepy, you're short on time, your environment is hostile, it doesn't help with your goals. No other friend is on a weight loss or muscle building journey, your friends are not fit, whatever it is, you'll find excuses. And we have the tendency to be there. But as long as we recognize ourselves, I always say awareness is half of the win, because it leads to certain reflections and hopefully certain steps taken in the right pathway that leads to winning. And winners find solutions. And without being funny, there is such a mix of you in the program. Some of you are ridiculously busy. And I appreciate you so much, because those ridiculously busy people are normally more organized people, more resourceful, and more willing to find those solutions. And that is the funny thing, the more tasks we have, the more resourceful we become and the more organized we have to become. And if you're finding yourself more often in this victim's mentality, saying that you don't have time, you're too tired, you're, I don't know, friends and family don't support you, this is valid. First of all, I'm not questioning it. It is valid, but it is possible for you to snap out of that and start finding the solutions. So firstly, recognize if you're more in one or the other. I don't need any answers. Like, I'm going to try to make it as impersonal, but I will ask you to do certain tasks. But I know it's quite private and personal, so I don't want to expose anyone unless you want to share, obviously. So first thing, mindset check. Where are you at the moment, or where are you most of the time? And think not just training, not just nutrition, but life in general. Tasks at work, relationships, finding solutions to life, basically. Because it's a skill to be a winner. It is not that someone is more lucky or is predisposed with better capabilities. Of course, we will talk about internal, external factors later on, but it's a skill to stop being a victim and recognize yourself as such and drop that and become a winner and start finding solutions. So that's the first step, very generically. The second step of working towards recalibrating, let's call it, is bridging the gap. All of you have joined the program for a reason. Most of you talked about aesthetics and physical aspects. And this is great because it's a very tangible goal. Most of you work towards weight loss or recomposition, so dropping body fat, building muscle. None of you really in this program wants to be bigger. And by bigger, I mean, let's say grow big glutes. No one ever said that. It's always nice to have lifted butt, but we're not bodybuilders. And that at least will be more relatable what I talk about. So first and foremost, anytime that you catch yourself in the victim's mentality, I want you to reconnect to your why, the deep one, not the surface level, because the surface level is losing 10 kilos, is getting stronger, being fitter. This is kind of surface level. Why do you want that? And I spoke with every single one of you like on a very deep level at some point before you joined the program. And maybe that why has changed, but it's always, and maybe your situation has improved and maybe you're quite happy with where you are and you might be wondering, is it even making sense to carry on? Because undeniably there are challenges, obstacles, compromises in the whole journey, and it's always going to be like this. So there is no light in the tunnel, so to say, but it is there for a reason. So remember why you started. Maybe you were second guessing when you were choosing the clothes to wear. Maybe it affected your dating, or maybe your sex life with your partner, or maybe just simple work relationships. Maybe you present in front of lots of people and you're very self-aware. It's something deep that I don't want to drag on now, but you know why. Building muscle is a little bit different and seems more challenging because someone that is relatively lean is less likely to be less self-aware. But I've worked with both weight loss and muscle building clients, and those muscle building clients also self-perceive differently than the environment. Body dysmorphia, and creating that always perfect look, because there's always someone that is going to look better and at least behave like they look better, like they're more confident, like their life is happier. So it very often stems still from confidence issues, and confidence on what level. So don't just treat it as a surface bit. Yeah, I want to be more confident. More confident in what situations? Is it, again, dating? Is it work? How does it affect you, or how did the situation affect you before you started the program? Because if you were, happy, your health was great, you probably wouldn't be here. And it is great that you're here, because that means you're self-aware and you've started a beautiful journey of forever self-improvement. Wherever you are, you will always want to probably get more for different reasons, but always make sure why that journey started. And another way to bridge the gap is like that why, now you're here. So imagine This is your start. This is where you are now. And now bridging the gap, why you actually want to continue, why to continue if you question it at any stage, because some of you have been in the program for a long time, have achieved massive success, and are still here. And sometimes maybe you lose that bigger vision. So I always ask people to recalibrate at that point and think of where actually you would be if you gave up. What would happen? Would you, and I don't mean next month, next week, next year, but I mean in 5, in 10 years. And I don't mean just physically. How would that affect your health and the bigger picture, your functionality, the ability to lead, as an example, maybe to your future family, partner, friend, kids, maybe to your current kids. Some of you have kids. So always visualize the cost of giving up now, or of stopping where you are at the moment. Because it also is very closely connected to your identity shift. Wherever you started, wherever you are, even if you've been in the program for 2 weeks, I don't think there is anyone that has been here, that like here on the call, but we have new ladies. Not everyone is even in the group, but that's okay. Yeah, so those of you that are here have been for a while in the program. So let's say you were here, you're here, and think if you stopped, if you gave up, if you, no problem in slowing down. The problem is always in giving up, because you're relatively happy, and again, it takes sacrifices and temporary discomfort to continue the journey. So I always ask people to imagine who you would become, let's say in 5 years, if you stop now. Would you be proud of that decision? Would you still be as organized, as disciplined, as persevering, and all the good features that you've built from X, so your start to now? Would you maintain those? Would you still feel the way you feel now? And that is normally enough to answer why you should continue. So that is bridging the gap. Bridge the gap, like between what you were and what you will be if you stop, if ever in doubt whether it makes sense. And fitness has so many forms and shapes. Your style of training will change, but this is exactly the reason why I've been training all my life. I started for different reasons, but it always was a matter of confidence at the beginning, not as much aesthetically, but I just didn't like who I was. And I pushed myself through all sorts of competitions. I realized fitness is not about competing and winning. And that's where the shape of my training and fitness and my mission and my vision for myself changed. But this is why I've been doing things the way I am, more holistically and sustainably, for longevity for the last 12 years, because I always visualize the cost of giving up, not just physical, once again. So I've touched upon it, reconnecting to your why, go beyond the surface. Again, most joined for weight loss, muscle building. Sometimes we're harsh on ourselves. So even if you're not still where you want to be, you obviously first need to ask, why is that? Is this that the effort you've put in wasn't enough, or the expectations were too high? Because if you've done everything that you were asked for, and it's rare that you've done, because life happens always, and it's impossible to be doing all that you're kind of set your eyes on. As much as I always create those weekly digestible goals, you come up with all sorts of situations after that week and said that I didn't do well because that. And it doesn't need to be that you didn't do well. You've done the best you could. But some of you, indeed, and obviously those few ones that struggle with consistency and accountability are not on this call. So well done for being here. And I knew who I can expect. So yeah, I mean, the proof is in the pudding, as always. And change is always challenging. And comfort is not challenging. And it feels like comfort, obviously, until it costs you the life quality. And again, that identity that you're going to build or create or maintain if you drop fitness and building what you've built so far. So always reconnecting to why. Then the future you, that's again recapping where you will be in 5, 10, 20 years. Because I promise you this, even if you're unhappy or not fully satisfied of where you are at the moment and you expected more changes, I'm telling you right now, you're probably too harsh on yourself, because habits, mindset shifts take time and we know it, but also learning new skills like performing training with certain exertion, structuring your life to fit in fitness there, is kind of different. Like that reality is different to what you might have expected. Like you will always be able and happy to go for an hour and train in the gym and always push and always hit your PB. It's not like this. It's never linear. But I'm telling you that your current effort, whatever it is, and your current results, whatever they are, small, big, very visible, not very visible, are still progress. And you should ask yourself, are you better than what you were before you started? Are you worse? Because if you're even the same, you're still better because you're creating that new reality, that new identity. But out of all of you that you are here, but actually out of every single lady that is in the program, even those that I still struggle with creating that structure that is sustainable, all of you have become better, even those that joined 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And the changes are not just physical. Think of the identity shift again. Then we go to setting the meaningful goals for lasting results, because sometimes we go a little bit wrong about setting goals. I'm a big fan of setting big goals that scare us, and big goals that feel a little bit impossible, and goals that maybe make us a little bit shy. Like, am I even able to achieve them? That's great. Your goals should be like this. But then focusing on the journey itself and on that final outcome without the system is a misunderstanding. And this is where people mostly go wrong. Like, I expected to lose X in X amount of time, or I expected to hit that PB, or I expected those pull-ups to be much better, or those push-ups to happen finally, or to be able to run 5K below 20 minutes. And that outcome is always the results of actions that you take. There are, again, internal, external factors. I'll talk about it in a sec. But once you set the scary, impossible goal, we should create a system and focus on systems. Without systems, those outcomes, the big goals that you dream about and probably are possible, well, unless, you're, I don't know, 2 meters tall and you want to be ballerina on ice rink. I don't know, something ridiculous, But most of the goals that we set in this group are realistic and very much achievable. But in what time frame? Sometimes reality will do a check. So thinking of a goal that is meaningful is a must, because without it, you drive without a destination. And sometimes that's why you lose the track and you lose the mojo. So clear goals give you obviously the direction. And what comes with setting goals is a little bit of science that I allow myself to throw here into the workshop about brain and behavior, because it's great you're listening to me, but there is science behind everything, behind our behaviors, choices, pleasures. So first, there is a part of our brain, prefrontal cortex. It's responsible for planning, but also for impulse control and executive function. So it's like analytical brain, let's call it. And then there is this dreadful dopamine. We love it. That speaks a little bit louder, that prefrontal cortex. Dopamine is released not only at the achievement, but also when you see the progress. So that's why tracking matters. Dopamine is not just created in the short term, but normally is the fastest fix for our pleasure, for how we see, perceive some events or challenges. If something is easily achievable and we know it's going to give us a quick dopamine kick, so quick pleasure, it's normally not long lasting. And normally it's not worth having because it comes with regrets. Unfortunately, it's that, to give you a simple example, I'm sure you have your ideas, but we talk about that cake that tastes amazing, but for 1 second, that party and staying 3 hours longer and downing another 5 drinks feels amazing. That things that are easy basically are dopamine driven, but then we can kind of control dopamine by progress markers. And that's why I believe so much in tracking, and I believe tracking matters, because it kind of, you gather the evidence, and the brain loves evidence of progress. If there's no evidence of progress, it will lose the track and it will want that faster dopamine. And also that planning and executive function of prefrontal cortex will be questioning, like, it doesn't even make sense. So that's why we track things. There is different ways of tracking. Some of you don't like tracking in a certain manner. Some of you go and step away from weighing. Some of you step away from taking pictures. But then I always push you, we track other ways. I never, in this program, obviously, if you want to fight against me, I'm not going to force you, but there is a good reason why I force you, I enforce tracking in one way or another, whether it's through food, and we know at least what happened, so we can expect certain response in the weight. We can also track the performance, then we can expect certain way of your body changing, and so on and so forth. And obviously, tracking needs to be tangible. We can track our behaviors, our feelings and emotions, and how we perceive things, but it's a little bit harder because it's going to be subjective if you do it on your own. But that's why I also encourage some of you to start, I encouraged to start journaling about food impulses, but also about your emotions of overwhelm or anxiety, because again, awareness creates action. It's powerful. And then we can analyze certain behaviors and respond accordingly. So tracking, first of all, if anyone wants to argue with tracking, that's why. Setting SMART goals. You probably heard of SMART goals. They need to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. Any other goal sets, I want to lose 50 kilos. Okay, it is just a dream. When? How? How are you going to measure? Is it actually achievable? Maybe you're 55 kilos and you want to lose 50. Okay, I'm being ridiculous now, but you know what I mean. Are they actually relevant to your why? Is losing 50 kilos is going to make you feel stronger or just smaller and weaker? And yeah, how specific, like 50 kilos is pretty specific, but again, it doesn't align with the other parts of setting their SMART goals. So at this point, I would have hoped that you at least reconnected to your why, or there was at least a few thoughts going through your head. So if you're reconnected, or at least have an idea why you started and why you're still here, I want you to think of your next goal, because we're talking October. Again, I'm a fan of big, unrealistic, impossible, realistic, feeling like impossible, scary goals, but let's drop them to smaller chunks so that they are more manageable. Think of a goal for October. It's the 2nd of October. And think first to align it to your why, because losing 10 kilos, but your why is, again, I want to feel stronger. Is this going to give you that feeling? And is this going to align with your identity shift? Again, those measurable goals, measurable through aesthetics, through tangible ways, will create certain identity shifts. So that alignment needs to come with your identity. Like, you want to lose weight, why? Is it that you want to be more energetic? You want to be more confident? You want to feel like you're worth more? Is this coming like, oh, you want people to see your worth, not just through how you look, but what you really stand for? Because obviously our worthiness doesn't rely on how we look. But it's a funny thing that most people I speak to, regardless of their goals, always say, I'm very self-aware, I'm very self-conscious, I always think what people think about me. And certain tasks I give you as well, of recording yourself in the gym, are also to break that feeling, because no one gives a damn fuck. I'm telling you right now, people normally are judgmental for 2 seconds and then they care about themselves more. But the feeling that you create through overcoming certain beliefs and fears, maybe feeling of embarrassment, or the feeling of being watched, is just within you. So you overcome it and you create more alignment to the person that you actually want to become after losing 5 kilos, or after gaining 5 kilos, or after reaching a certain PB. So write down the specific goal that aligns for October. I think we have 5 weeks or 4.5. It's a long month, but let's say for 4 weeks. And be very clear. And I'm going to ask you in private later on, maybe on the Monday mindset, or maybe you can put it in your check-ins, but most of you have done check-ins. So anyway, Monday, I'll follow up on that, and I'll verify how realistic it is from a scientific fitness point of view, and we can dwell if that's creating that alignment within your identity shift and what you stand for and who you want to become. So write a specific goal. Specific goal, if you're not after weight loss, could be performance. I want to do 1 non-assisted pull-up. 2 hard, okay? I want to increase my hip thrust by 10 kilos. Then you need to think whether that's, again, aligned. Always think of that alignment to your personality, who you want to become, why you started, the deep non-surface reason. And then it's probably the hardest task, because once you come up with a goal that is aligned with you, it's going to be easier to see how we can measure it. Weight loss, easy. Either scale, I don't trust that bitch. I'd rather do measurements or pictures. Scale is also nice, but sometimes it's very misleading, and I'm sure you know by now. Also by reps, by time under tension. Maybe I want to be stronger, but there's no way I can lift 10 kilos more. Maybe you want to extend time under tension on certain lift. That was my goal 2 months ago. I was done with doing pull-ups and I thought that's boring now, and I was like stuck. So I thought I still want to do pull-ups and continue working on them. So I decided I am looking to get a set of 10 reps with 10 seconds under tension. Terrible. But yeah, then is it achievable? Let me verify it if you're not sure, but don't be shy. Remember, get it a little bit scary, because the bigger the goal, the better your motivation and the better like your response from your body, and you're going to create a structure that is more likely to make this happen. If your goal is too small, it's not exciting enough. Your brain will not follow. And again, align it to your why and deadline. We have a deadline, end of October. Can you let me know when you're ready? So let's see, there is 6 of you here now, or maybe more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, 6. So if anyone just gives me yes or no, if you've got the goal, don't need to think maybe too much about the other MAR and T. I mean, R and S. So be specific and relevant, make it relevant. And then I'll ask you either on Monday, or maybe sooner. Let's see. But got it. Cool. 5 more. I do want you to be ready with this, because you're gonna then switch off after this workshop and you'll forget, and now your brain is already wired. Yep, Tammy. I think I do, Tammy. Steph, cool. Kind of know as well. Pat, not too sure. That's great. We're doing it. Fatima, Maddie, Kate. I know Kate's on train, so maybe she's not. Figure Andrea, you're still here. How the come I don't see you? Sorry, girl. I missed you. Okay, not sure. And this is very important feedback for you. It's time to get sure. I'm putting you on the spot. Do it now, and we'll verify it. Kate, what was the question? You lost the connection. Yeah, you're on the train. Creating a smart goal. I think we talked a little bit about it, Kate. Creating a smart goal that is relevant to your identity shift. Yeah, I think you do. So, Andrea, and Maddie, that's really important for you to come up with it. I won't be pressuring you now, but let's say in 15 minutes. So keep thinking about it and we move on. And also, Fatima, I missed yours. So let me know yes or no. It could be also creating a habit. It doesn't need to be, but then a habit needs to be very specific. I don't know, waking up at 7 a.m. Well, why is it relevant? Because I lack energy. Is it achievable? Well, not if you start work at 6 a.m. because you have to get up early, right? Is it measurable? Yeah, we can track it every single day in a calendar or a diary or somewhere. And deadline, yeah, because you're probably not going to be able to hit all days straight from the 3rd of October. There needs to be some sort of flexibility. So we, Maddie, will wait for you later. I'll ask you at the end. Right, let's move on. And another thing, SMART goals is pretty like a familiar concept. There's also another one beyond SMART with that deep alignment. I did again talk about it, but see it on a visual so that you remember whenever you set your SMART goal, because SMART goals, when people go wrong with them, they don't align them, they don't connect them to who you see yourself as after reaching that goal. Because I used to think for a very long time, I need to have a bigger butt. And once it started growing, it was such a torture to do that I eventually lost the joy of training and felt like I'm following that pattern, the template of bodybuilders, and I don't stand for it. I was always a performance athlete. I like being strong, fit, fast, have big endurance, and yeah, that's it. And but big butt doesn't kind of align the work towards the big butt. So I set SMART goals for that, but then I lost the joy for it. If it, you know, it's not connected with what I stand for. And whoever does feel like having a big butt, I'm not obviously slagging this goal off, but maybe it feels like your confidence will be better. Maybe you will feel more sexy. Maybe you know, so as long as it connects to you. So remember that the self-image need to connect to the behavior, to also to who you want to become, even if you're not there yet. And as it says here, when the behavior connects to self-image, people persist longer. And that was a great example. I persisted not long with that. And a different example, you don't just want to lose weight. You want to be what after that? That you've lost, maybe stronger, maybe more energetic, maybe you want to come across differently when you go dating, or maybe you want to dress differently, and that again creates more confidence. I think it's pretty obvious now. Do you follow? Does it make sense? Yeah. Hope so. Andrea, cool. Right. When it comes to fitness, we need to talk about different dimensions and different pillars. The obvious one, so we did touching a little bit from aesthetics, because your aesthetics will follow. And since we are in a fitness program, like, you know, you can lose weight without training. Whether it's going to give you the results that you're after, I doubt it. I honestly doubt it. So fitness is a part of your goals. Whatever your goal is, even if it's creating a routine, maybe something about stress relieving and waking up earlier and being more energized. Some of those pillars will apply also to that goal. So most of you will have fitness goals or will have fitness as a tool to achieving your goal. So let's talk about those 5 pillars: strength, endurance, mobility, nutrition, recovery. I take fitness as holistic. You probably realize that by now. So your nutrition is part of fitness. That's how I see it. It's not just training, because training will be strength or endurance, but also your mobility will be your fitness. So you can be strong, but you might not scratch the back of your back. I don't think you're fit. You might be a great endurance athlete, but then you can't lift a heavier bag without doing your lower back, things like this, you know. So I see it always as 5 pillars. One always needs to come in front as the major focus, depending on your goal. You're always tired and sore, etc. We need to look at the recovery. Your nutrition sucks, but maybe it sucks because your recovery sucks, because your evening routine sucks, and you're tired, you're constantly running on 4 hours sleep, and then your nutrition choices will be not that as well as nutritious as they could be, and so on and so forth. Maybe your strength is great, but then mobility again, and so on and so forth. So just bear it in mind that all those 5 pillars will overlap each other, and possibly with setting your SMART goals, we will need to look into other pillars. That's why, because I'm now thinking, why did I put it here? What was my train of thought? But that's it. Or some of them might be more obvious, that is about strength or about nutrition, but maybe not necessarily. That's why I will want to check with you what goals you set up and how you want to measure and what actions obviously to take. And now, very important things. It's not only about our efforts, because you all here, especially you that are on this call, I know you're putting lots of effort, but sometimes the factors that affect our success or the speed of success are external. Obviously, environment, social support, schedule, culture. So environment, whether your friends are fit or not, will affect you, whether your partner likes drinking wine every single night, or whether your family has been telling you, eat, why didn't you finish your plate, or you didn't try that, and you know, it's like in-depth programming that will affect us. But maybe it's also a current external factor that is affecting your progress. Social support, that kind of closely overlaps. Schedule, yeah, we don't have the same 24 hours. Some of you are single mothers, work long hours, study. Some have more and some less demanding jobs. It might be long hours, but more stress, more pressure, more deadlines, more responsibility. That all affects how fast you progress and how well you can perform tasks that I set up for you. And I'm absolutely fully aware of that. That's why I always, sometimes I actually have to remind you that you're too harsh on yourselves. And with what you've got, with what your external, internal factors are, you're doing your best, unless you're not. And then I'm going to call you out. But you all here definitely are. But again, you're on this call, so I have no doubt, and you shouldn't also about yourselves have any doubt. Cultural differences, different cuisines, different eating schedules, training perceived in a certain way for women or not, or yeah, my dad always said it's either muscle or brain. Well, I'm probably more muscle, but still doing not too bad. But he still says, like, you still training like that? This is my career. And he still questions it. So, you know, it is really shaping how well we're going to do until we actually get stuff and kind of thicker skin to certain factors. But I'm just making you aware, like, everyone's success will be different depending on those. Obviously, internal factors, our mindset, our hormones. Mindset will also depend on that internal programming. All stems from childhood, where we grew up, what we were taught, what awareness we were, people raised, like our parents. And then comes very closely self-belief, whether we were constantly complimented or maybe constantly nagged, or things like this, you know, and obviously sleep and hormones depending on our age, but also on certain conditions. So it's never a straight line, and I'm fully aware. And I never expect too much of you in my own belief. But if I ever do, I always tell you, tell me if that's the right support, and you have a chance to flag me off in the check-in form. But that's why it's very important for me that I give you enough or in the right manner. And obviously, science shows that studies show people with accountability partners are 65% more likely to reach goals. So that will go back to the external factors. But I would also say, you know, that accountability partners will stand back to our parents, to our relatives, and so on and so forth. So now, mini exercise for you girls. I want you to write down one helper apart from myself, okay? Think of who is your biggest cheerleader, who supports you, who understands when you say, oh, I'm so bloody starving and I can't keep up and I want that cake, and is going to tell you, you can do it, have 2 glasses of water, you're going to regret it later. Or maybe they will stop you when you're pushing too far. And when they see that you're overtraining, or maybe they will ask you, you know, certain diplomatic questions and tactful questions. And who is one blocker in your own life? I would like you to think of more a person rather than a habit, in particular for this task. And, you know, I'm thinking why I've created this task is, show me 5 of your friends and I'll tell you what you stand for. It's so true. And sometimes it's hard, especially at our age, 30, 35 plus, some 40 plus and some 50 plus, because there are ladies here at different ages, even though predominantly you're 35 plus. But at certain age, it's harder to change your environment, to make new friends. So it's very important that you're at least aware of who to ignore or avoid certain subjects with, and who actually turn to, who will understand you, and who will not say you're extreme, you're crazy because you've set a certain goal, or because you say no to a drink, or because you can say no to another social event. So list one helper, list one blocker, and let me know. Fitness person, one knowledgeable friend. Well, it's a tool. I want a live person, and I don't want that person to be myself. Unless I'm a blocker, then I want to be aware of that. And it doesn't need to be a person that is equally fit or going through the journey. Andrea, Diana. Okay, we love Diana, but Diana is a blocker or Diana is a helper? Amazing. Bring her on. Bring her in the program. Amazing. But as I'm saying, I'm joking, but it doesn't need to be a person that is fit and on the journey, but a person that is understanding, will not question your choices, and so on and so forth. My partner is a helper. Tammy, unless he buys those fatty sausages, right? Yeah. No more blockers, all removed. Wow, love it. I mean, and who's their blocker? Have no blockers. Okay, cool. Or someone that is always, I don't know, draining your energy. Because it's not even for your fitness journey, it's for your life. And the older I am getting, the more protective of my energy I am, regardless of hurting someone's feelings and risking those friendships or relationships. You don't need to give names, but I appreciate actually you doing that, or at least telling me who that is. And it's amazing if your helper is someone really close. Steph, and I know your helpers, Maddie as well, and Kat, yeah, she was not here. There's three friends that actually, Steph told me they created a group, I believe a fitness group, right, related. So it is amazing. Julia's Angels, yeah, I love it. I love it. Help her friend, blocker, sometimes my beliefs. Any person, because your beliefs also stem from Fatima, from certain programs that you were taught and think, you know, I know, I have an idea who it might be, but think for yourself. You don't need to share. We talked about it a while back. It was quite a personal, deep convo. Yeah, I think you do. All right. So I can't say avoid the blockers unless you can, but I'd say take the words, advice with a pinch of salt. And it's easier sometimes said than done. But I would let my dad upset me about my training for such a long time. We would fall into arguments with certain food choices. He still triggers me, I won't lie, but I can avoid my lovely dad. He is actually my hero with lots of mindset things, and he was the reason why I got so deep into psychology. But his certain beliefs are just crazy, and you won't win with him. So I know at least let it in one ear and let it out through the other. So be aware, because if you've written down particular people, then don't let them make you feel a certain way, because I always see it as giving them power over what you are, what you stand for, and how you feel. And if they are blockers, let it block them more often, or at least what they say. And if possible, remove them. Tracking, we're going back, because I think it's clear now that what gets measured gets managed. Some of you don't like tracking in a certain way, but if we go back to these 5 pillars, think of how you're tracking each of them. Okay, aesthetics kind of, as you see, doesn't really go anywhere in that pillar, because aesthetics is the surface level why. Yeah, and we should probably put our mental health here. But let's say I didn't want to get complicated, because we are talking about mental health mindset today. So think of tracking methods for each of those. Do you have in place for each of those? Do you have your tracking methods for strength? Yeah, you do your trainer eyes. I have never allowed anyone not tracking the workouts, unless at the very, very beginning, when the goal is just like when there is a big weight loss goal for health reasons. We want to at least create habits. So we measure things through habits, through consistency. But all of you in this program, strength measurements, tracking applies. Endurance, do we have anything for that? Doesn't matter for you. Some of you in tracking forms say, I've noticed I am less out of breath going up the stairs and stuff like that. So this is also important for your check-ins to self-reflect, because sometimes the weight didn't move, the clothes don't fit any better. You actually had quite a bad week. Your mental health was down, whatever happened. But then I ask you always push for it, find the win. Maybe actually you had to run to a bus or down the stairs, or you were annoyed the lift was full and you chose the stairs, stuff like this. Mobility. There is no way for me to see it, but sometimes the mobility issues come up after we strength train too much. And then I realize you don't do your mobility drills or stretches at the end of sessions. Some of you are hypermobile, so I'm not too fast that way, but at least roller and stuff like that. So think if Garmin checks endurance and recovery. Fantastic. Who's that? Kate. Is this just a Polish thing? Is this the app? I've heard about it from a Polish friend. I don't know if it's actually thing here in the UK. Have you heard of it? Garmin. Smart. I know it's a smartwatch, but I'm like, not Polish then. Okay, so here we go. I don't do that. I don't do that. My mobility, I do it daily. So I know, and sometimes you feel like you're stiff, but then you do your mobility drills and you realize that actually it's still there. But the way probably to measure your mobility would be by the consistency of doing your mobility drills. We can do tests for mobility, but because we're not in person, and if you really want to improve your mobility and work on it, talk to me. Andrea, maybe. I'm just giving you a nudge. Nutrition, obvious, that's obvious. Recovery, that's also pretty obvious how we measure recovery. soreness, sleep, and performance on further sessions. But the endurance mobility, if you want to focus more on that, let me know. Because I missed that, it isn't about pressure, it's about proof of growth or feedback that something is not right. And sometimes one of the pillars needs to go priority to the other. I always say there is this principle of, how is it called professionally? I won't come up with it now, but the principle that says that whatever you focus on, obviously, will take away a little bit from the other parts. If you focus on strength, your speed endurance might give in a little bit. Another way around, then you focus even simpler. You focus on doing your pull-ups, all of a sudden, you notice that your push becomes a little bit weaker. That's normal, but as long as we measure and we don't start regressing massively, and that's why we create the programs that will target always different thing and different ratio. So we kind of stay balanced. And scientifically, feedback loops strengthen neural circuits. So you acquire skills faster, knowing that actually you're progressing. Like, how are you progressing? Range of motion, time under tension, better control. It doesn't need to be just that typical obvious weight progression, but it also could be noticing and tracking your recovery. For example, you wake up at 7 a.m., always dragging your feet, but all of a sudden you wake up before the alarm clock, and that neural circuit is strengthened, it's reinforced. So you start actually finding pleasure and acquiring that skill. Obstacles and resilience, because it's not if obstacles appear, it's when. That's normal. I think it's obvious by now, but sometimes some of you are, probably every single one of you at certain point, feels a little bit disheartened at one point, a little bit upset, maybe a little bit disappointed. But life, again, okay? Life is always lifing. We can't predict certain things. We have travels, personal events and family, whatever. I don't need to give you examples. You know what I'm talking about. It's not if they happen, so when. And it's there's this little tactic, and I want you to create today, in a second. I didn't actually put it as task, but in a sec, the responses, because we need to plan the responses to certain events that are more predictable than the others, like when, I don't know, something extreme like death in the family is pretty extreme and it totally shakes us, and it's hard to plan that. But still, all that mindset game prepares you for hard moments and detaching from the kind of level of the problem, even if the worst situations happen in life. So habits free you from decision fatigue. Obviously, I'm going to relate it back to fitness rather than going deeper into life stuff. But if you only rely on willpower, you're gonna fail eventually because it's very short-lived. You know that. We start through willpower, but we don't hold through it. So if then planning is your solution. If something happens, then I'm gonna do that, so that you break down the usual stuff that happens. Like, I always go to the gym at 9 o'clock. But if my alarm doesn't go off, or if I oversleep, if I wake up and have a cold, what will I do? So that you don't create the identity of completely dropping the ball. Obviously, depends on circumstances. You wake up with 40 degrees, you're not going to go train, you're not even going to do a walk. But if you're tired and if you had to wake up earlier because there is more work and you couldn't train in the morning, I'll at least go for a walk that day, at the end of the day, or at the time. And again, make it specific. Make it, the more specific you go, the more likely things going to happen. That's why I push you. When are you training? No, that day is not enough. What time? And you create the habit, because habits free you from decision fatigue. If you wake up and like, okay, today I'm training, I don't feel like now, then I'm busy and then I'm tired and then nothing happens. That's why create a habit. If that happens, I'm gonna go during my lunch break for 10-minute walk. So at least you create this identity shift from someone that completely drops the ball when circumstances change. If you're busy and you get caught up with work, you have to stay longer or you have to get up earlier. I'm gonna shorten the session. How? Also be specific. I'm gonna do one hard set of every exercise rather than 3, but I'm gonna do all exercises. Other thing, I'm gonna do a home version of my gym session if you can't travel. So if you have upper body, that's probably more difficult, but any lower body movements can actually be imitated body weight. So you can say, I'm gonna do all of the exercises that I can do that I usually do with the gym equipment for legs at home body weight, but I'm gonna double number of reps. So that to get a little bit of exertion. But again, you can shorten that session and do one set only. Okay. If I don't have anything in the fridge and it's late, I'm not gonna order a takeaway, but that is actually the negative loop. Like we don't want to negate, we want to create solution rather than negation, because our brain doesn't hear that not. It wants to affirm things. So affirmations come in questions. So if I'm hungry and I come back home and there's nothing in the fridge, I'm gonna order a Greek yogurt from local Tesco. I'm gonna just pop out and get Greek yogurt and fruit, and then buy more and cook dinner for the next 3 days, for example. Or I'm always gonna buy something that is stacked in the fridge that can be easily grabbed and is a good solution. Because again, if it's not at hand, it's easier to reach for those quick dopamine solutions. And sometimes they're quick, like talking about takeaways. You know what I was thinking the other day? Like you say, oh, I didn't have time to cook. I've heard it so many times. I didn't have time to cook. And then it turns out you looked through whatever, Deliveroo or whatever, and it took you probably a good 20 minutes to choose, and then you had to wait another 30 minutes for delivery. Like in that time, you could have literally gone downstairs, especially in the UK. There is shops everywhere, open till late, and grab something quick. Even not necessarily high protein, but still a better choice than takeaway. But this is again creating the loop of identity of someone that doesn't care, that is tired. You still go for 80% of whole foods, nutritious foods. We're recapping already. Oh, I'm pretty quick today. Am I? No, I'm not. At least I'm on time. Recapping very quickly, as you say, goals must be psychological. So connected to your identity, who you want to become, who you stand for, who you wanted to become once you started the program, and who you didn't want to be, like far away from that. So bridging that gap. Biological and practical. Biological meaning assigned to your or aligned with your capabilities, age, and whatever we're working on, and practical in terms of, because you're going to stick to them more. So make your aesthetic goals more practical. Like, I want to lose weight, I want to gain more energy because I want to, I don't know, see my friends in the evening rather than feel like I need a nap, or play with my kids rather than be grumpy and snap at them, whatever else. Okay, make them connected to your identity, make them practical. So task, I've already done that. A question goes back to Maddie, Fatima, and Andrea. What's your, like, do you have a SMART goal? Has anything occurred to you in the last, I think it was 25 minutes actually? Maddie, fantastic. I'll ask you later on Monday, Fatima and Andrea. Still struggling, or did something come to your mind? Okay, and that is not very specific. Thanks for sharing. We'll talk about it. So some more body fat is not exciting enough for your brain. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to track it. And what we don't track, we don't manage. What we don't manage is, and there's no kind of response and feedback loop. Decrease metabolic age. Okay, so again, more specificity. More specificity when it comes to how, from what to what, in what time. We know we're talking 4 weeks, we're talking just October. Your metabolic age probably is a longer term vision, more body fat. Okay, from what to what time we know, like what time frame, and I'll tell you if it's increased metabolism via food. Fatima called increased metabolism via food and strength. Okay, speed up, probably that's what you mean, yeah. So this, okay, fine. So it needs to be specific. Increase in what way? How are you going to measure your metabolism? What we can measure is the task that I give you about food. Your metabolism, we know, speeds up the more muscle mass you've got and the leaner your body is. So better ratio of muscle mass to body fat. So the more muscle you build, exactly, that comes to the building muscle goal, yeah? So, but it is nice to break it down and kind of start from the bottom, because you said you said increase metabolism, and that is what you're actually are integrated to and like connected to with the identity, like increase metabolism, because I know you want to feel more energized, you want to feel stronger, and that will come to building muscle. So this is actually a good goal because it connects to your deeper why and to the person that you want to become. That's good. I want to do my push-ups. So for example, parts like, why do you want to do your push-ups? How does it align to your identity shift? Why is it important? Who are you going to be? How are you going to feel once you achieve push-ups? How many? Yeah. Don't worry about methods. Like if you create your goals good well enough, I'll give you the strategy. And that's why, because I can't. And that's not a good one. Like it's probably something deeper standing there. Like it will give you confidence that you're a badass and a woman that does push-ups, because it was a long time for me like this, and I wanted to always be like not the weak woman, but this is why I probably did so many sports with men or manly sports, but whatever. And maybe it's just a badass internally, like I want to feel strong, and when I feel strong I feel more confident. I actually carry myself better. I don't need to look a certain way, but when I'm strong, I actually feel like I'm someone, or I feel a certain way. So we will talk about it, because again, how many push-ups? Where are you at the moment? 4 weeks to go. I'll tell you if it's realistic, but write down your goals. I'll hit you up and we speak in private. But thanks for sharing. Was this 10-20 in 4 weeks? Probably unrealistic. But we can, I love it, but let's keep it as your long-term goal. At the end of the year, no problem. Okay, at the end of the year, sure. But then we're gonna start working and breaking it down, maybe to 5 to 8 by the end of this month. But let's analyze it. Yeah. Thanks for being here as always. Appreciate you. Any questions? Was it helpful at all? Helpful? Yes or no? Questions? Yes or no? Okay, it's helpful. Thank you. Very helpful. Okay, cool. All right. Have a good evening then. And I'll reach out to you about your goals. And yeah, speak to you soon. See you on the next one.